Greetings and welcome to The Hidden Truth, True Crime Story.
It's great to be back.
Today we're diving deep into a topic that's both fascinating and chilling, the mysterious disappearances of some of history's most famous figures.
It's always captivated people, hasn't it? The idea that someone so well known can just vanish, seemingly without a trace.
It really does, so much so that there's often a tendency to fill in the gaps with theories and speculation, right? I mean, we naturally try to make sense of the unknown.
Absolutely. And these cases often become lightning rods for all sorts of explanations, some more plausible than others.
Yeah, we've all heard the theories, right? Everything from elaborate cover-ups to accidental mishaps to something truly sinister.
The human mind loves a tussle, especially when it involves someone whose life seems so public and yet, in the end, becomes so shrouded in mystery.
And today we've got a really compelling lineup of cases to explore. We're going to delve into the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, the powerful and controversial union leader. Then we'll move on to the tragic death of Princess Diana, which still generates debate and speculation even today.
Those are two very different figures, but their disappearances both captured the world's attention in a profound way.
They did. And then we'll travel back in time to revisit the mystery surrounding Amelia Earhart, the aviation pioneer who vanished over the Pacific Ocean.
A story that continues to inspire and puzzle in equal measure.
It really does. And finally, we'll examine the baffling case of Loretta Lynch, an influential activist who disappeared under very strange circumstances.
A more recent case, but one that highlights how even in our modern world, people can simply vanish without a trace.
Exactly. So get ready for a deep dive into the world of unsolved mysteries. Stick with us as we unravel the facts, explore the theories, and try to make sense of these enduring enigmas. Let's start with Jimmy Hoffa, a man whose name has become synonymous with the phrase, vanished without a trace.
Hoffa's story is a potent reminder that even in a country like the U.S., with its emphasis on law and order, there are undercurrents of power and influence that can operate outside the traditional boundaries.
You're right. He was a powerful labor leader, the head of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. And during his time, he was able to amass an incredible amount of influence, not just in the world of labor, but in politics and even, allegedly, in the criminal underworld.
His rise to prominence is really a story of ambition, both for himself and for the union he led. He wanted to make the Teamsters the most powerful union in the country, and he was willing to use whatever means necessary to achieve that goal.
And he certainly made a lot of enemies along the way, didn't he? He was a controversial figure, no doubt about it. He was known for his tough negotiating tactics, and there were always rumors about his connections to organized crime.
Those connections are absolutely crucial to understanding Hoffa's story. His dealings with the Mafia, particularly figures like Anthony Tony Jacks, Giacalone, and the Detroit mob, are well documented.
But the exact nature of those relationships and the extent to which they influenced his actions are still debated by historians and investigators even today.
It's a murky area for sure, but it's clear that Hoffa operated in a world where the lines between legitimate business and criminal enterprise were often blurred.
And that world eventually caught up with him, didn't it? In 1967, he was convicted of jury tampering and fraud and sentenced to prison. It was a major fall from grace for a man who had wielded so much power.
It was, but even prison couldn't completely diminish Hoffa's influence. In 1971, he was pardoned by President Richard Nixon, a move that allowed him to potentially regain control of the Teamsters.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because Hoffa was determined to reclaim his position at the top of the union.
Absolutely. He was a man driven by ambition, but also, perhaps, by a desire to prove that he couldn't be kept down.
But that ambition, that drive, may have ultimately led to his downfall. There were many within the Teamsters and within the Mafia who were opposed to his return.
His comeback attempt disrupted the balance of power that had been established in his absence. He was a threat to too many people, both inside and outside the union.
And that brings us to July 30th, 1975, the day Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. He left his home in suburban Detroit to meet with two reputed Mafia figures, Anthony Giacalone and Anthony Provenzano, at the Macca's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan.
It was a meeting that Hoffa believed would help him pave the way for his return to power. He was confident, perhaps even overconfident, in his ability to navigate the treacherous waters of organized crime.
But he never made it to that meeting. He vanished without a trace, leaving behind his car in the restaurant parking lot. His personal belongings were still inside. There were no signs of a struggle, and no witnesses came forward with any information.
It was as if he had simply stepped out of his car and into thin air. The mystery of his disappearance has captivated the public imagination ever since.
Immediately, the FBI suspected foul play. Given Hoffa's history with the Mafia, it seemed likely that he had been the victim of a hit. But the question was, who ordered it, and where was his body?
Despite an exhaustive investigation, no trace of Hoffa was ever found. The lack of a body only fueled the speculation and the conspiracy theories.
The theories are truly wild. Some say he was buried under Giant Stadium in New Jersey, others that he was entombed in concrete at a Detroit construction site, and still others that his body was dissolved in acid.
Those theories reflect a fascination with the Mafia's supposed ruthlessness and their ability to make people disappear. It's a morbid fascination, but it speaks to the enduring power of the unknown.
And then there's the confession of Frank Sheeran, a mob hitman, who claimed in his book, I Heard You Paint Houses, that he was the one who killed Hoffa.
Sheeran's confession has been met with skepticism by many experts, who point out that there's no corroborating evidence to support his claims.
Nevertheless, it adds another layer of intrigue to an already fascinating case. Did Hoffa really fall victim to a mob hit? Was he betrayed by someone he trusted? Or did he somehow manage to orchestrate his own disappearance? The truth, it seems, is lost to history.
The mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance remains one of the most enduring, unsolved cases in American history. It's a tale of ambition, power, and betrayal, a reminder that the pursuit of success can sometimes lead down very dark paths.
And it leaves us, the listeners, to grapple with the unsettling reality that some questions may never have definitive answers. Now, let's turn our attention to a very different kind of mystery, one that involves royalty, tragedy, and a level of global fascination that is hard to comprehend: the death of Princess Diana.
The world was stunned on August 31st, 1997, when news broke that Princess Diana had been killed in a car crash in Paris. The people's princess, beloved for her humanitarian work and her connection with the public, was gone.
It felt like a punch to the gut, didn't it? The images of the mangled car in the Contalama tunnel were everywhere. Along with Diana, her companion Dodie Fade and their driver, Henri Paul, were killed. Only Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived.
It was a tragedy that sent shockwaves around the globe. Millions mourned her loss, and the outpouring of grief was unlike anything the world had seen in recent times. But amidst the grief and the tributes, questions began to surface.
The official investigation concluded that the driver, Henri Paul, was speeding and under the influence of alcohol and prescription drugs. But many people refused to believe that Diana's death was simply a tragic accident.
There were just too many unanswered questions, too many loose ends. The presence of paparazzi pursuing Diana's car that night added fuel to the speculation. Were they responsible for the crash? Had they pushed the driver to take unnecessary risks?
And then there were the more elaborate conspiracy theories, often implicating powerful figures who supposedly saw Diana as a threat.
Those theories often focused on Diana's relationship with Dodie Fade, a Muslim man whom she had begun dating after her divorce from Prince Charles.
Some theorized that elements within the British establishment were opposed to the relationship and saw it as a threat to the monarchy.
Others pointed to Diana's growing independence and her outspokenness on issues like landmines and AIDS. Did she become too powerful, too much of a loose cannon for those who wanted to maintain the status quo?
The theories swirled. and they continue to swirl even today. Was Diana's death simply a terrible accident, or was there something more sinister at play? Officially, it was ruled an accident, but the doubts and the speculation persist.
The fact that Diana's death happened in such a public way, with cameras capturing the chase leading up to the crash, only added to the mystery.
It's almost as if the world witnessed the prologue to the tragedy, but the final act remains shrouded in speculation and unanswered questions. So for those listening, we ask you, what do you believe? Was it a tragic accident? Or was there a deeper, darker truth behind Diana's death? The mystery, like Diana herself, continues to captivate us. But now, let's shift gears and journey back in time to the golden age of aviation, a time when daring pilots pushed the boundaries of what was possible and the world watched in awe. It's the story of Amelia Earhart, a woman who dared to dream of flying around the world.
Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol of courage, determination, and the boundless possibilities of human endeavor. Her solo flight across the Atlantic in 1932 made her an international icon, a woman who dared to challenge the limits of what was thought possible.
And her ambition didn't stop there. In 1937, she set out on an even more audacious adventure, to circumnavigate the globe, a feat never before accomplished by a woman.
It was a risky undertaking. The technology of the time was primitive compared to today's standards, and the challenges of long-distance navigation were immense. But Earhart was undeterred.
She took off from Oakland, California on May 21, 1937, with her navigator, Fred Noonan, by her side. They flew eastward, making stops in South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia.
They covered thousands of miles, battling fatigue, mechanical problems, and unpredictable weather conditions. The world watched in amazement as they inched closer to their goal.
On July 2, 1937, they took off from land, New Guinea, for what was supposed to be one of the final legs of their journey. Their destination was Howland Island, a tiny speck of land in the vast Pacific Ocean.
Howland Island was crucial for refueling. It was a tiny target, just 2 miles long and a half-mile wide, and missing it would be disastrous.
And tragically, that's exactly what happened. Despite radio contact with the U.S. Coast Guard ship Itasca, which was stationed near Howland, Earhart and Noonan were unable to locate the island.
Their radio transmissions became increasingly frantic as they circled the area, desperately searching for the island. They reported they were low on fuel, and then silence.
The Itasca searched for days, but no trace of Earhart's plane was ever found. Despite one of the most extensive searches in history, the mystery of their disappearance endures.
Did they crash into the ocean? Did they land on a remote island, only to perish from exposure or starvation? Were they captured by the Japanese, who were expanding their influence in the Pacific at the time?
The theories are plentiful, and each one has its proponents and detractors. Some believe that Earhart and Noonan crashed on Nicomaro Island, part of the Phoenix Islands in the Pacific. Evidence has been found that suggests a possible landing there, including artifacts that could belong to Earhart.
Others cling to the idea that they were captured by the Japanese and held as prisoners of war, though there's no concrete evidence to support this theory.
And then there's the more outlandish theory that Earhart staged her own disappearance, choosing to live out her days in anonymity. It's a romantic notion, but one that lacks any real evidence.
The truth, as with so many of these cases, remains elusive. Amelia Earhart's disappearance is a reminder of the power of the unknown and how even in an age of technological advancement, the vastness of our planet can still swallow people and their stories whole.
It's a reminder that even the most daring and ambitious individuals can be humbled by the forces of nature and the mysteries that still lie hidden in our world. Now let's bring our deep dive into the present day, with a case that's both puzzling and unsettling: the disappearance of Loretta Lynch.
Loretta Lynch was a rising star in the world of activism and social justice. A lawyer by profession, she dedicated her life to fighting for the rights of marginalized communities and advocating for racial equality.
She was a powerful voice for change, someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. And then, on November 14, 2005, she vanished.
It happened in Washington, D.C. while she was attending a political conference. She was last seen leaving her hotel room, but she never made it to the conference.
The circumstances surrounding her disappearance were incredibly strange. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no ransom demands. It was as if she had simply stepped out of her hotel and vanished into thin air.
Despite a thorough investigation by law enforcement, no trace of Loretta Lynch has ever been found. The case remains open, but the trail has gone cold.
The lack of any leads or clues has led to a flurry of speculation. Was she abducted? Did she meet with foul play? Or did she choose to disappear voluntarily, perhaps feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of her work or facing threats that we're not aware of?
The theories are unsettling, and they highlight the vulnerabilities faced by those who fight for social justice. Did Loretta Lynch become a target because of her activism? Did someone silence her to prevent her from speaking out?
Those are questions that haunt us, and they speak to the very real dangers that activists and advocates often face. In a world where powerful forces can sometimes operate in the shadows, it's a chilling thought that someone could be silenced for simply speaking truth to power.
Loretta Lynch's disappearance is a stark reminder that even in a seemingly open and democratic society, there are forces that can operate outside the boundaries of the law, and individuals who can vanish without a trace.
It's a mystery that continues to baffle investigators and to raise uncomfortable questions about the nature of power and the lengths to which some will go to protect their interests. So, for you, our listeners, we ask, what do you believe happened to Loretta Lynch? Was her disappearance the result of foul play? Or did she choose to vanish for reasons we may never fully understand? The answers, like Loretta herself, remain elusive.
As we conclude our deep dive into these four enduring mysteries, we're left with more questions than answers. The disappearances of Jimmy Hoffa, Princess Diana, Amelia Earhart, and Loretta Lynch continue to fascinate and frustrate us precisely because the truth remains hidden.
They remind us that even in an age of information and technology, some secrets are never fully revealed. They challenge us to consider the complexities of human nature, the allure of power, and the fragility of life itself.
They also force us to confront the unsettling reality that sometimes the most compelling stories are those that remain unfinished, leaving us to ponder the infinite possibilities and to search for meaning in the absence of definitive answers.
And that, perhaps, is the most enduring legacy of these cases. They remind us that the search for truth is an ongoing journey, a quest that may never fully end. And that even in the face of uncertainty and unanswered questions, the human spirit continues to seek understanding, to crave closure, and to find meaning in the mysteries that surround us. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden truth. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never stop searching for answers.
See you next time.